Hey, what's up? It's Shea Smith here, former IBF junior middleweight champion of the world. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Sporting Icons. Cheers.
Okay, so thank you very much to Sonny for sending me the recent Jermell Charlo interview where he reiterates and clarifies his previous points. Where previously he said that the fight between Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury, as in the rematch, was not about colour line, okay? It was not a racial fight. It had no racial element to it, none whatsoever, okay? And he said that Tyson Fury just happened to be better than Deontay Wilder. Skills pay the bills, where he just absolutely annihilated Deontay Wilder because Tyson Fury is better than Deontay Wilder. There was no cheating going on or anything like that. So in response to that, Deontay Wilder has said that Jermell Charlo needs a slap in the mouth, and he called him all kinds of derogatory kind of terms. And apparently, I haven't seen any of these videos, by the way, some of his Wildettes, his Twerk Army fans have been also going in calling Jermell Charlo a coon and an Uncle Tom, or whatever kind of words it is that they're using to Jermell Charlo. Now, firstly, okay, I'm not here to tell you what's right and wrong or anything like that, okay? I live in a very privileged country, okay, the United Kingdom. Okay, I wear white skin, so what would I know about a lot of stuff, okay? I'm not going to be here preaching to the choir. But Jermell Charlo, when he's clarifying yet again that rematch between Fury and Wilder had nothing to do with colour, of course it didn't. He's absolutely right, it didn't. Tell me why that was a racial fight. Can somebody tell me? What, because there's a black man taking on a white guy? It happened to be in Black History Month? It was only Wilder who tried to make it a racial thing. Because, listen, there's so many people out there who go through hell, okay, because of racial divide. Even now, year 2021, it still goes on. And personally, I think if you're racist, you're a scumbag and you need to get off my page. Your parents are scumbags too for bringing you up that way. But there's a lot of people out there who want to say how today, in the year 2021 and last year 2020, when this fight took place, that things are as bad now as what they once were. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Okay, I'm not American, okay, but I do hear that there is still some pretty bad racial stuff going on over there. Of course, the whole George Floyd situation and that as well. Which, by the way, there were plenty of people, celebrities and, of course, sports people, and, of course, here in boxing, who did come out and show their support for the Black Lives Matter and the whole situation with George Floyd, like Anthony Joshua did, like Vladimir Klitschko did, and I can go on with a list of names. And, of course, eventually, Wilder came out. In fact, Wilder was one of the last people to come out and actually say something. And what is it that Deontay Wilder did? And let's have it right here. By the way, I think Wilder does a lot of good for his community. I'm just saying that. But in this particular situation, what is it that he did? He came out wearing a "to this day" hoodie on, giving a poem, kept saying "to this day." In other words, he was using that whole George Floyd situation to try and profit, to get people to buy his merchandise because of his tagline, "to this day." Don't tell me he wasn't. And this is the kind of man that you want to follow, is it? Come on now. Now, at the end of the day, it had nothing to do with any kind of racial element whatsoever. Again, just look at the fight. Just look at the fight, okay? Before we get into some other things, okay? Just look at the fight. Fury's a white guy, okay. Wilder's a black guy, okay. That's about as far as it went. It was in Black History Month, okay. Coincidental? Maybe, or maybe not. I don't know. But there was a black referee. So how was this Tyson Fury was receiving white privilege? A black referee. Tyson Fury's trainer, black, in Sugar Hill. Deontay Wilder's trainer, who threw in the towel, Mark Breland, American boxing legend, a black guy. So how exactly was this white privilege? Because Wilder couldn't take the beating? What, do you think that the fight happened to be on Black History Month? That made Wilder invincible? Of course not. It just happened to be Wilder, in general, is not as good as Tyson Fury in that boxing ring. In the third fight, maybe Wilder's going to pull out a huge punch or something, okay, and set the record straight, whatever it may be. But the whole thing's just been excuses. But ultimately, if you're one of his Wildette fans and you're calling Jermell Charlo a coon because he's saying that fight had nothing to do with racism, then you're an idiot. You're an idiot. And again, I'm talking to the Wildette fans who, as in especially the uploaders here on YouTube, who are calling Jermell Charlo a coon because he said that fight had nothing to do with the colour line, had nothing to do with it whatsoever. If you're calling him a coon, well, What kind of area do you live in? What do you know about it? Let's be real. Hey, Jermell Charlo, he's from Texas, right? Texas, okay. I'm a white guy living in the United Kingdom. I don't know too much about America, okay? But of course, I read books like most people do. In fact, I probably read a little bit too much. But many, many movies, of course, all about like racism and whatever else, of course, the past and the slavery and all that kind of thing. And Texas is one of these places, yes? Or at least it was. I don't know how bad it is now. I have no idea, but I'm still pretty convinced, or at least in my mind, according to news and many different things, that Texas is pretty much a white and Hispanic state, is it not? So Jermell Charlo has probably received some kind of racism. So he will know. By the way, I'm saying that everywhere across the white world, if you want to call it that, like America and UK and everything, there's probably some racism even to this day, probably in every street and every city of our countries, right? And of course across Europe and that as well. But he's from Texas. Are you from Texas? Do you know what it is that he goes through? Do you think maybe he knows a little bit more about racism than what maybe you do? Maybe. If you're calling him a coon, and if you're not from, say, Louisiana or Texas or Mississippi or Florida or South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and of course Alabama, where Deontay Wilder is from. If you're not from these kind of areas, then, and you're calling him a coon, you are living in a very privileged time. You're living in a privileged place of history. If you're from New York and you're calling Jermell Charlo a coon because he said that fight was not about racism, if you're from New York, you need to shut your damn mouth. If you're from California, if you're from Nevada, if you're from Wisconsin and Iowa and Michigan and all those kind of surrounding areas, you need to sit your ass down because you have grown up in a very privileged state with very minimal history going on with racism. As I said before, of course it's racism. There'll be racism pretty much on every street, unfortunately, but not to the extent of the South. I don't have to be an American to understand that. I don't have to be a black guy to understand that. So I want to hear from YouTubers who are from the South when it comes to this particular subject, if you are calling him a coon. Because there's too many people out there, like YouTubers, who want to front this whole black power situation. And by the way, better luck to you if it's genuine. But I think there's a lot of disingenuous people out there. There's a lot of them out there. Black guys sat there trying to profit by using the colour line, trying to profit using a racial divide. You almost get the impression that some of these people actually want the racial divide, but yet they want to say how today is as bad now as it ever was. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? As I said, especially if you're from like these northern states. It's not even close to it, is it? But these people want to use the weakness of a lot of young black Americans to try and get their money from them. It's a hustle. And if you're falling for it, then I feel bad for you. I really do. But these people haven't got the first clue about it. They live in a very privileged lifestyle. Some of them probably have white wives and girlfriends with half white kids. Wilder, how's your black wife getting on? You know what I mean? By the way, I think it's great, by the way, that people can have interracial relationships. I think that's fantastic. I'm not dissing. I'm just saying, just don't tell me that you're part of the black power when you have a non-black wife. Why don't you ever have a black wife? Why is that? What, are you not attracted to black women? What is that? Maybe you can't get one because maybe they're a little bit stronger. Okay, maybe you like to be the dominant person in your household. Maybe that's why. I mean, I've dated quite a few like a black girl goes in my time, and yeah, it's very, very demanding. My wife, of course, is African, as I've explained many times. Very demanding. Okay, she's not from like Central Africa or anything like that, okay? But very, very demanding. Don't get me wrong, white women are very demanding as well. Of course they are. But even so, don't tell me that you're part of this, this Black Panther movement and you're all pro-black and this, that and the other with your white wife and your half-white children, and you're growing up in a state that has very little to no racism. Well, not no racism because of course that would be very unfair. But compared to the South, you're very privileged. And to say that the year 2021 and the year 2020 was anything like the past, you are diluting your history. You are diluting all those who were before you, everything that they went through. These people, through way before, even as late as the 70s. Way before then, throughout the history, who went through all the racial segregation and everything. You are diluting their history. You are disrespecting their history by saying that things are as bad now as it once were. These people pre our era would have given their arm, their leg, and their lives, and a lot of them did, to get to a position that you're in now. And you, and what? You dare want to say how it's as bad now as it once was? Really? Really? Some of these people are playing victims. That's what they're doing. They're trying to play the hustle online because there's a lot of weak people out there. There's a lot of weak-minded people out there, uneducated people out there. But a lot of these people in themselves are just playing the victim. That's what they're doing. They will say, oh, well, I didn't get this job because of my skin colour. I didn't get this in life because of my skin colour. I grew up in this particular hood or this state, whatever it may be, because of my colour. I mean, and this is why I don't get the opportunities that other people do. Well, don't be blaming the colour line for it. Be blaming your parents for bringing you into the world in that kind of area. Blame yourself as well for not trying to get out of that area, for not trying to do more with your life. What, you think standing around on the street corners, pretending to be like wannabe gangsters, you think that's going to do something? That ain't going to do nothing. You need to get out there, get yourself the best education that you possibly can, and if you've missed the boat on that one, if you have children, put them into the best schools that they possibly can. Encourage them to go to school. Do homework with them when they get back home. Help them get out of your damn neighbourhood. Again, I'm speaking from a person in white skin in America. So, of course, like some black people go, oh, what the hell do you know? Who are you to talk about it? And, of course, you're absolutely right from a certain perspective. But I know enough to know that calling Jermell Charlo a coon is ridiculous, especially if you're from a privileged area. I mean, Wilder, of course, he's from one of the worst places, isn't he? In Alabama. Of course he is. But year 2021, he has grown up in a very privileged lifestyle compared to what it once used to be. Let's be honest about it. You shouldn't be calling somebody a coon. Why? Because they disagree with your narrative, because you want to try and push this narrative. Why? Because you want the racial divide. That's what it is. You don't want equality. You want the racial divide. For me, I don't have any kind of racial friends or anything like that. Any racist friends. I can't stand racism. I never have. But again, that's because my parents always said that. They can never understand it. Never understand it. Of course, for me, I don't even recall any kind of incidences. But again, you know, I'm a white guy. Maybe I wouldn't see that kind of situation. Having the N-word here in the UK is pretty rare. But in America, it's like, you might as well put it in the dictionary. Maybe it already is, I don't know. Because that's how frequent it is. But either way, you call in Jermell Charlo and saying how things are as bad now as it once was, you are diluting the past. You are diluting your ancestors who fought for everything to try and get to a position of what you're in. They would have loved that back then. It ain't perfect. Of course not perfect. Always room for improvement. But you need to get off your soapbox. You need to stop calling the public. Wilder needs to shut his mouth. He ain't no leader of Black Power. He's a guy who went to the White House with the President Donald Trump at the time and said nothing other than thank you very much to Donald Trump for pardoning Jack Johnson. That's it. And the only reason that Wilder was there is because he happened to be WBC heavyweight champion at that time. If Michael Hunter had been champion, guess who would have been there? If Charles Martin had been champion, guess who would have been there? And he had that opportunity to say something in front of the watching world and did nothing. I told you, this guy's a fraud. He's a fraud. My thoughts, you drop me yours. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you all in the next video.